So, welcome to our today's lecture. I'm called Mohindo Mubarak. I'm a software developer, and I work with A Technologies together with Dr. Drake. So, today we're going to look at two critical topics, as how Dr. said, and that is SQL injection and cross-access scripting. So, that's what we're going to cover today. So we have a lot of things to cover, and then we'll also be looking at practicals on how these things can be implemented practically. Now, we'll begin by the section by looking at the section of SQL injection. So here's what we're going to cover. We'll cover what is meant by SQL injection. We'll look at what is meant by the SQL, what is SQL injection, programming languages that are vulnerable to SQL injection, examples of SQL injection. Then also look at how to reduce the risks of SQL injection, and then we'll come to the summary of SQL injection. So we're going to concentrate much more on practicals, on how these things can happen in real world, and how we can try to get rid of them. Not even get rid of them, but how to reduce them. So that's it. I want to set here my timer. So now we begin by by looking at the meaning of what is meant by SQL. So it's going to be an interactive class. So I will ask some of you to mute your microphones and you contribute to what we are demonstrating. So I'm going to begin by looking what is meant by SQL. So before we even look at the meaning of SQL, I'll first ask from the audience if there is anyone who have an idea about SQL apart from Jedediah. Can I have anyone who knows anything about SQL? You just open your microphone, or you open your microphone and put your arm up, and then say what is meant by SQL, how you understand it. Can I have anyone who can tell us about SQL, please? I'm going to, maybe I should pick randomly. Mr. Opio Andrew, please, guys, let us participate. Let us participate in the class. Let us try to be attentive and respondent. Okay. Anyone who knows anything about SQL? Okay, you put your arm up and then I'll pick you. By the way, those who contribute in my classes, I always note them down, and maybe they can even be awarded some marks. Okay. Andrew Pio, are you there?
Yes.
How are you, Andrew?
Fine, how are you?
I'm okay, sir. What's meant by SQL? How do you understand the meaning, the term SQL?
Yeah, in simple terms, SQL is a query language that is used to connect to the database.
Okay,
So
thank
it's
you.
used to fetch, edit, and do any kind of operations on the data from the database.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for that. And what is the difference between SQL and MySQL then? What is MySQL?
I think MySQL is a database, then SQL is a language.
It's a language. Thank you so much, Andrew. Okay, thank you. I'll note you down here. So not those who participated, who contributed. Opio Andrew, I don't know. Okay, so that's exactly what Andrew said. SQL stands for structured querying language. It means that SQL is a language. It lets us access and manipulate the database. SQL can also help us to retrieve the data from the database. SQL can insert records into the database, and it can update records in the database. So SQL can delete records as well, and SQL can create new databases. So SQL create new tables. So when I talk about tables, I'll hope that everyone knows what is meant by table. And SQL can store procedures into the what? Into the database. So SQL can create views in the database. It can also as well change the permissions of user accessibility to the what? To the database itself. So before we even proceed to what is meant by, let us try to look more deep on what is meant by what by SQL. So SQL, as Mr. Andrew said, it's the language that you use to communicate with the database. And what is a database itself? A database, when you're creating an application, there must be a place where you're going to store the data that you expect to be changing. For example, if you make maybe a chatting system, so I mean that messages that these people will be exchanging, they must be saved somewhere, not statically. For example, maybe you create a home page, but home page may be static, but the messages that are going to be sent from one person to the other, you cannot predict them. So they must be stored somewhere, and then you access those messages and then display them to the user. So a place where you store these messages is what we call database. So the language that you use to communicate to the database is what we call SQL. And then you have different types of database. So databases are kind of independent softwares, and that's where we'll come to look at things like Oracle database, MySQL database, and so many other database types. So it means that a database is a very critical aspect in our projects, or when you create projects. Why? Because it is used to store dynamic data that our applications depend on. Assume that you're creating maybe a student management system, a place that you're going to store the information about student, their marks, their school fees structures, what they have paid, and everything. That place is what we call database. So when you access it, and it means that your application is almost the backbone of your application, because everything that will be displaying will be depending on on that database. So assume that I know much of us, some people here, or most people here, not everyone, but most people, they must be understanding what is meant by database. But I want to draw the whole picture so that all of us will be on the same page and understand how database is important. That's why I try to explain more about database. Assume that you create a mobile application, an application that will have issues related to money. Let us say you're creating a Sql application or a bank application. So it means that there must be a place where you'll be saving money that has been deposited to people's accounts. So which place is that? And that is a database. That place will be saving. For example, if you have registered myself with the application and I'm start saving my money there, for example 10,000 I've deposited to my account, that place where I will save that Muhindo or Mbarak has saved this 10,000 to his account. That place is a database. So you imagine if someone else or someone has ability to tamper with the data in your database without your control. Maybe let us say that you create a Sql or a bank application, and then you finished it, but there is still one hole or one space where someone can freely pass through your application and they access your database and manipulate it without your control as a developer, or without your intentions as a developer. So that will be really critical, because that person has found a way to manipulate or to manage to change something in your in a database. So if maybe, let me say, assume that I'm able to create a hole in your application and I can send a message. So I can change people's accounts balances. How does it mean? I'll be able to deposit money to accounts that I don't own. I can add as much money as I want to my account, and then at the end of the day, you'll be paying me what I not really worked for, just for my ability to do to penetrate the application. So just sit down and think very critically how database can be very important to our application or to our system. Assume that you have access to manipulate the current database of the university or our university, Makerere. Assume that you're able to do that. You can manipulate their database. Assume you have that ability. What does it mean? It means that you can change people's marks. It means that you will never have retake. It means that you will always have A every day. And it means that you can even sell. You can do that as a business. You want to get first class? I have a way. How much do you give me? Then you, by your skills, you just go and manipulate the system and change the information, the data in the database. And then you can see how much case you can cause to what? To the campus or to the university. So you should just sit down and think how that can be really interesting if you have ability to do what? To access the database. So it is really, really important. The database is really, really big factor to our what? To our application. Though we have other things like user interfaces and how speed the application is, but database is very, very what? Is very important factor. So we come now to, this is after we've understood what is meant by database. Now let us come back now to types of databases. So different application can use different types of database. As we said, we can have MySQL and the rest, and the Oracle and the rest. So now there is a language that is standard, just like the way you know HTML. HTML is the language that we use to display content into our web applications. Almost HTML does not have a competitor. It is just one language that is standalone that we use to communicate to our database. I mean to display content in our web pages. So there is also that kind of standard language that we use to communicate to our databases. For example, I want to get information to the database and display them in our application. That standard language is what? Is called an SQL. Almost different programming languages, they use what? They use SQL, even though it is PHP, Python, and the rest. At the end of the day, you'll have to write an SQL to send information to your database and retrieve it. To structure to SQL database. But these days we have come up with database which don't have. You don't need to write SQL to communicate. That is not our today's topic. But for us, we are concentrating on what? On database. I mean on SQL. So it means that if you have ability to pass through SQL and communicate with the database, it means that you're holding too much power in your hands and you can do really a lot of things to other people's application. Likewise, if you're not aware that there is someone who can play around your application and then they are able to write SQLs and send them to your application, then it means that you're also risking a lot when you start making real world applications. So we must be really keen when we are handling when you're handling such parts of application. So I hope if we have understood what is meant by SQL, and also we have understood what is meant by database, and also have understood how important database is to our applications. So we can proceed now. Now we come now to our today's main topic, or what is on our today's main menu, which is SQL injection. So what is meant by SQL injection? SQL injection is an attack that consists of insertion or injection. So I'll come back again. SQL is what? Is an attack. So what does it mean? So let us go slowly. I mean, when you write, get here. I want to get some annotation. You see, when you're writing exams, most of the time we may not need to really tell the exact definition that we told you when you are doing what, when we taught you, but we always need you to show that you understood. So memorizing this definition as it is may not be important, but you to understand is what is very more important, even to do what, to implement in real world. So let us look at important words here before we even finish the whole thing. SQL injection is a what? Is an attack. So when you're defining if you ask in exam what is meant by SQL injection, don't forget at least that there is something called attack. You may go around it, but you should at least put something called attack. So attack that consists of an insertion, okay, or an injection, okay, of a query via input of data from the client to application. So that the most important terminologies in a definition of our SQL injection. So when you're collecting data from the users of our application, if that user tries to attack our application through the weakness of our SQL or the way how we handled SQL, then that's what we call is an SQL injection. But there is still one more. So first of all, it's an attack. So this is very important word there to note. And one more thing, it's an insertion. There's what you call insertion. What does it mean? What does insertion mean? Insertion means that there is addition of there's addition of the query that we did not originally add there in an application. Insert means to add there some more thing. These insertions we sometimes call it injection. So this insertion, the addition of more information to our query that we did not intentionally create at the beginning of our application. Addition is what we call injection. So it means that SQL injection, it can also be termed as SQL insertion. So if this term is new to you, or if you knew it already, if you knew it before, it means that when you're defining it, you shouldn't even bother too much. But what you should make sure that is existing in your application, in your definition, first of all, you should make it clear how it is it is an attack. And then the second thing, it is there's an insertion of information to our SQL. So if the person or a person who is using the application finds a way to add more, if the person using our application finds a way to add more his SQL or to change our SQL that you originally create, find a way to change the SQL that you originally create, it means that person has done what we call SQL injection. And injection means to add more information or to manipulate, to add more information to our SQL in order for it to perform something that we don't do that we not intend it to. Assume that you want to select something and display it on the screen. Maybe you want to select 5 people and display them on screen. But someone who is using your application, he is able to manipulate your application and through the SQL, and he displays 20 people, yet wanted to display only 10. That means that person must have inserted something into your SQL, and that's what we call SQL injection. So a successful SQL injection exploit, a successful SQL injection exploit can read sensitive data from our database. So assume that, that is straightforward. I think I don't need to even to explain it. And they can also, successful injection can also perform the following: can modify, can insert, and it can update, and can delete data from our database. It can as well execute administration operations on the database, such as shutting down the database. So if a person or someone with a malicious intention to our applications attacks our application using SQL injection, it means that they can as well insert more information to a database through SQL injection. They can update the data. They can as well do they can as well delete. I've already explained this. As I said, that if you're good at SQL injection, You can modify the data in the university. You can change people's marks. You can even create new lecturers and assign them different roles if you're really good at SQL injection. So it means that SQL injection is very important because it is a way how we can manipulate the language that communicates to a main place where we store the dynamic data of our applications. So it can lead to dangerous action, such as inserting data, updating data, as well as deleting data. So I hope now you understand what is meant by SQL. You understand what is meant by SQL. You understand what is meant by database and different types of database. You understand how important databases are to our application, and you now understand what is meant by SQL injection. You might not have got the definition exactly as how it is, but at least you're now getting a picture. Ask yourself if you're getting a picture of what is meant by SQL injection. You might not understand the definition as they are, but ask yourself, are you really getting the pictures? If you cannot get things, like you're not understanding, you're totally lost, you're free to say, hey, I'm lost here, and then you can put your arm up and then we can help you. But I hope the speed that I'm taking is not too much, and I hope you guys you're getting stuff. So you know what is now meant by database and different types of database. You know what is meant by SQL. You know what is meant by SQL injection. You know how SQL injection can be dangerous to our database, and you know how important database are to our applications. Now I think we can now proceed. So let us look at more things about SQL injection. SQL injection is a code injection technique that might destroy our databases. So let me tell you one thing that we may expect you to write. If we say that, hey, explain or define SQL injection, and show that you understand SQL injection and exam. So what we expect you to define it and then add such as spices, like some more words to show that you understand. For example, if we give you like 10 marks to define SQL injection, we don't mean that you should just write the definition of SQL injection and leave it hanging. No, 10 marks, it means that we expect you to add such spices like the one I'm adding right now, to make us understand that you really understand what you do, you understand by what is meant by SQL injection. So that's one more tip that I give you when you'll be writing your exams. So SQL injection is a code or injection technique that might destroy our database. SQL injection is one of the most common web hacking techniques. So web, we have ability to access the source code of the web. So web is always malicious to our applications compared to other applications like mobile application or applications that are compiled. There's a difference between this compiled application and script application. Script application, like web application, remember, they are not compiled, they're executed when we run a file. Okay, so it means that this file can be changed anytime. But compiled application, like a software that you'll install in a computer, or a mobile application that you'll install in your mobile phone, it means that this application was compiled and it's no longer being changed. But web application, their scripts, they can be changed. Okay, so it means that web application, they can be dangerous to our application, and SQL injection always affects much more of web applications. SQL injection is the placement of malicious code into the SQL statements via the web page input. So most of the source of SQL injection, it comes through the web page input. As we proceed, we're going to look at how this can happen. So SQL injection usually occurs when we ask users to enter the data, like their username, their user ID, their names, and etc. So we give the user ability to do what? To enter the information into our application. So they can now use those loopholes or those inputs field that we have given them to either accidentally send SQL injection to our mobile application, or intentionally do SQL injection. So if you write your application carelessly, as how we're going to demonstrate, you will find that if you're not careful, a person may accidentally, maybe my name, you ask me to enter my name or my password, and maybe I'm putting some in my password I'm putting some characters. SQL is just a string, it's just a string, and it's made of characters. So it means that if I change the characters, it may mess up with the word SQL. So you ask me to enter my password, and then I start entering characters that are going to mess with you, that are going to change the structure of your SQL accidentally without knowing. So what does it mean? It means that I may break things, I may delete things, I may unknowingly, or I can still be intentional. I can also use the field that you've given me to intentionally attack your your application. So that's it. So here, before we even proceed, so let us take a picture. It means that according to this statement that is on the screen, SQL, the main place where SQL injection comes in, is through the inputs that we ask people to enter in our application. When you ask person, please can you enter your username, that you're collecting data, you're collecting characters, you're collecting information from the user. That is the place you get what? You get the loophole, the first loophole that person can do what? Can modify the database. But if you have an application that is not allowing people to enter the information, maybe the application is maybe just display, how will they be able to even modify, because they're not collecting data? But when you start collecting data from people or from users, that is when you start becoming vulnerable to what? To SQL injection. So the main point here, SQL injection mainly come through the user inputs. When you ask a person to enter their name, their password, those stuff there, you're collecting information from users. That is where the SQL injections comes from mainly. So which programming languages are vulnerable to SQL injection? Let us look at them so we can avoid them. So which programming languages are vulnerable to SQL injection so we can avoid it? So the answer is any programming language used to interface with the database can be affected, as long as that programming language can interface or can communicate to the database. It means that programming language is already vulnerable to SQL injection. So when we ask you in the exam, can you please tell us a list of programming languages that are vulnerable to SQL injection? Even though you'll be guessing, but think, is HTML having any way that connects to database? HTML, some people call it programming language. Does it? I don't know. But does it have any way that connects to database? The answer is no. So among the languages that we expect you to list to us, don't say HTML. Why? Because HTML, like common sense, it does not communicate database. Don't say things like CSS. CSS is just for the interfaces, so it does not communicate database. But programming languages that communicate to database, all those programming language, all of them, there is a proof that they can be vulnerable to SQL injection. So it means that it doesn't matter the programming language you use, as long as we want to communicate database, that programming languages can be vulnerable to SQL injection. Among them, we have Perl programming language. Python is also vulnerable to SQL injection. Ruby on Rails, Java, ASP.NET, ASP. I have JSP, we have PHP, C#, and VB.NET. So almost all the programming languages, they are vulnerable to SQL injection. So it means that SQL injection will always be there. Okay, will always be there, but you will can either reduce it up to minimum when you do what? When you make your applications. So these are the lower programming languages. Lower level programming languages. Those ones that work with operating system that are also vulnerable to what? To SQL injection. C is vulnerable to SQL injection, and C++. So even though they communicate to their lower level languages that you can use to create operating systems, but they're also vulnerable to SQL injection. Why? Because they can also interface, so they can also communicate with what? With databases. So if you need to look at the references, go and look at this book. It's called I hope Dr. Drake must have shared this book with you. It's called Deadly Sins of Software Security. On page number 6, you will see, you will be able to learn more about SQL injection. Programming languages that are vulnerable to SQL injection. So let's look at example of SQL injection. Okay, before we proceed to that, I will first ask and see if you really guys are getting things. Aksam Luanga, are you there? If I call you and don't respond, I'll note your name down. Luanga, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there.
How are you, Papa?
Good. How are you?
I'm okay, sir. Are you getting stuff?
Yeah.
You knew them? Or you had just idea?
An idea.
Okay, but I hope right now you're understanding properly the thing that you're talking about.
Yes.
That is great. Okay, thank you for being attentive. Continue listening and following. Yeah. Eric.
Hello?
How are you, Eric?
Yes.
Boys?
I'm okay.
You okay? That's great. Are you following?
Yes, I am.
How are you understanding things? Are you understanding things, or you're totally lost?
I'm fair there. All I know in SQL injection is an attack. It involves an injection. About how SQL can be used to insert, delete records in the database. So yes, I've been grasping some points along the way.
But so far so good. You're understanding stuff, eh?
Yes.
That is great. Okay, we'll ask you just one more lady, and then we'll proceed. Thank you. Sharon, are you there? Sharon Leka. Sharon?
Yes.
How are you, Sharon?
Fine, thank you.
Are you following things? Are you following?
Yeah, I'm following, but my network has been on and off.
Where did you understand so far? What have you understood so far?
Actually, what was clear was like which programming language is vulnerable to SQL injection. Yeah, but I've been off and on.
So are you sure when you watch the video you'll be able to understand?
Sure. Why not?
Okay, that's great. Then, okay, thank you. Thank you for following. Keep around. We'll take attendance in last 30 minutes. If you disappear before 30 minutes, you'll miss the whole class. In the last 30 minutes, yeah. Okay, then. Okay, thank you for following, guys. So we can proceed, since I'll assume that you are all on the same page. So let us look at examples of SQL injection. So we have the first one called SQL injection based on one. We have the first example is called SQL injection based on 1 equals 1 is always true. So the first example that you can look at in SQL injection is 1 equals 1 is always true. We are going to demonstrate that, and you see how it is what it is meant by 1 is equal to 1. So if a person, maybe let us say that you try to log in the users, and then this person is able to rate like 1 equals to 1. Maybe now you're trying to find, maybe if let us assume that you are logging into the mobile into your application. So you're going to look at a person's username. Okay, so if a person's username is specific, for example, it's my phone number, so it means that if I enter wrong phone number that's not in the database, it means that I'm not supposed to access the database. But if I put like 1 equals to 1, of course this is true, so it means that it will be able to pick a certain random user account and assume that I'm that particular user. So that is what an SQL injection. We're going to demonstrate it and look at it. So the first one is called 1 equal to 1 is always true. That's the first problem that, or the first vulnerable, the first example of SQL injection. Another example of SQL injection is empty string is always equal to empty string. So someone can base on that fact that an empty string can be compared to another empty string and the answer will always be true. So someone can base on that fact to hack your what? Your SQL. So SQL injection based on batch statement. So in SQL we can execute batch statements. For example, I want to insert 3 records into a database. I can write 3 statements all of them together in the same line, and I'm able to run them in the same iteration, not in the same time. So it means that you have run the batch SQL. So the batch operation. So it means that someone can base on that fact that SQL can support batch operations or batch statements to execute batch statements, can based on that to hack our system, as we're going to demonstrate. So SQL injection based on batch comment, on SQL batched comment, someone can know that SQL there is commenting. It allows commenting. So someone can comment our SQL through the inputs field that we give them, and then our SQL will end up performing something that we did not really intend it to perform. So SQL injection based on 1 is always equal to 1. So how does that SQL look like? So for example, this one you can say select from users where user ID equals to 200, and then this person. So here maybe let's say that we want a username where we want to display a certain username from we want to display some users who are going to enter a certain username. So for us, our SQL will be ending here, but this person can go ahead and add this remaining part of O 1 equal to 1. So it means that if you add this 1 equal to 1, even though he enters the wrong thing, and O, once one of the 2 operations on O is true, it means that it will be true. So if we enter as O and the other O part is true, of course 1 equal to 1 is always true. So what does it mean? It means that it will successfully execute this SQL even though it is what? It is wrong. So from there, we'll go into practicals and we see how we can demonstrate this. Okay, let us go ahead and demonstrate this. So try to be attentive here. We're going to do some little practicals, okay? So even though you don't do programming or you're allergic to programming, I'll try to be slow so that you can, those who know and those who don't know too much of programming can all be able to understand. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make here a simple application, and we're going to see how our application can be vulnerable to such an SQL injection. So I'm going to create a PHP application here. So those who didn't know, a PHP is a programming language that can use to execute backend information. So the first thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to create a folder. I'm going to create a folder where I'm going to put the application. Okay. So where will I put the application? So I'll come to the place where I always save the PHP project, which is here, and I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it maybe, how should I call it? I should call it maybe bank. Okay, let's call it bank. So this is our application, and the next thing I'm going to open it in an editor. Okay, so we have different types of IDEs, what we call editors, and in there I'm going to put the application. So this is an editor called VS Code or Visual Studio Code. So this is the application that we just created. So I'm going to drag and drop this folder and put it here. Okay. So this is the main application. So what I'm going to do to see if this application is working, I'm going to put there our file. So guys, I hope you're following, because these things, they'll be in exams. They may come in exam. So try to be attentive. So I'm going to create here a new file, index.php. Okay. So this is just our first file that we're going to execute. So here I'm just going to put nothing but homepage. Okay, homepage. So I'm going to execute now this file. Okay, so to execute this file, I'll come to the browser, to our browser. So I'll open the browser here. And then I will here. So I'll open here localhost stroke what? Stroke bank. So you can see homepage. So I have successfully created are you following? I'm not seeing data. Okay. So I have successfully created my homepage. I'm in my PHP file and I'm able to execute it. So according to what operating system you're using, there are different steps that you can take to do what I've just done. But for me, for those who are using Mac, those are the steps, and they are really simple. If you really never, even if you didn't even program, if you don't do programming, still you can do such a basic thing. You just install XAMPP and then you execute a first file of PHP. You can do that. Something simple, really. So after doing that, we are going to create a login page. So let's go ahead and create here a new file. I'm going to call it login.php. Okay, so in this login page is where we're going to handle the login logic or the login things. So if I come and say here stroke login.php, so I mean that I'll be able to access this empty file. Okay, so in here, well, as we say that SQL injection is always about much more of collecting the information from the user. That's where the problems comes in. Let us go ahead and I'll just get this simple file because I want things to be okay. So I can write here just some basic HTML, and in there I can add just this file of Bootstrap. I mean this link of Bootstrap. So this is our page. So inside here we're going to just put a form. So let's assume that we want to log in into we want. So what are you demonstrating anyway? We want to see how someone can be able to manipulate our system using this this condition that 1 is always got 1. So what you're going to do, you're going to collect here the username maybe and password for the user. So I'm going to write here just a simple form. I'm going to submit the same endpoint, and then I'm going to collect here those who program. I hope you're understanding what I'm doing right now. I'm going to collect here the username of a person. Okay, so I'm going to have here form. So I'm going to have here maybe some div. I'm going to be a little bit fast because I don't want to take much time in designing. Class, form, group, and then I'm going to have here some label, and then maybe you can put here maybe username, and then here I'm going to put here username, and then we're going to have here some input that is going to collect the username of a person, and we'll have the the name of username, and have a class of input, and then form control. Form control. Okay, so maybe can also make it kind of required. Okay, so that's enough, I think. Let's go ahead and refresh and see what we've got. So if I refresh, this is what I have. Okay, so let us maybe make this form a little bit smaller, so I can give it maybe some div, and come say class call role, and then come say div class call for, and then in this one you can put the form itself. So can refresh, have something like this, and then maybe you can come and put here maybe some pt5. Okay, and then yeah, that's what we have. It's beautiful, right? So that's good. So here we have designed our simple login screen, and then can put here maybe h2. So after having that, let's go ahead and now duplicate this one, maybe enter the password. We want to see how someone can be able to log in without what? Without username, with the wrong username and password. So come here and say password. What we're trying to do right now, we are trying to demonstrate how a person can hack our application, and then they are able to log in with what? With wrong passwords, using the power of SQL injection. Okay, that's what we're trying to do right now. Don't mind about those Chinese things, they don't look okay. So here, that's what we've got. Let's go ahead and give there a button for submitting. Input, I can just call it button, and then say submit, and then give here type submit, and then give here class btn primary. Okay, so by that you can have just a simple but beautiful form for you for the login. Okay, so pt maybe empty 5. So that's great, and I hope you can all see that. So this is a simple input form that we've just designed, that you're going to create. It's going to collect the username and password of a person, and then it will check if this person was successfully logged in or not. So that's it. Let us go ahead and create our database that we're going to use to validate the users. Okay, so what I'll do, I'll just come here and write I'll go to my localhost and got php my admin, and then we're going to create here our simple database. I'm going to call it also bank, and then this is the database. So we're going to add there some tables, a table of users in this database. Okay, so we're going to call it maybe users. Okay, so I'll go ahead and create that. So in this table of users, maybe we'll have the ID, and it's going to be auto incrementing, and the primary key, and then we'll have the username of a person. Username is going to be maybe text, and can be null, and maybe password. Okay, maybe text and can be null, maybe also those are enough. I think those are enough. Okay, so username and password, that's enough to demonstrate this. Maybe can put a name, maybe a phone number, maybe name. Okay, maybe phone. Okay, yeah, that's enough. Those are three fields that can be enough for us to demonstrate. It can as well be null. So we have created our database there. So I come again into what I've just done. We just created this project, and you saw I did it, and then I've just created a simple database on php admin here in php admin. Okay, and that database, we called it what? We called it bank. Okay, here. So, and we have just created there one table called users, and this table is having just ID, name, and phone number. So let us insert there some data. So to insert there some data, you can just simply come and say put insert. So the first person, you can come and say we have username. So the first person can have maybe John, that is the username, John, and then the password is 1234, and then the phone number, that's the phone number. Okay, and then let us have another person called Joan. The other one is John. This one is Joan. Okay, so Joan will have password 4321, and then also her phone number will be 078. So that's enough for us to elaborate. Okay, may not be enough, but it's not. Let's see if we can add more here. Insert into, so yeah, the values. So we had this and Joan. Let me come and put it. Okay. So let us add here some more people. Have Joan, have Jane, and maybe other password, and this is the phone number, and maybe June 1234, and this is the phone number. Okay, so this just going to have there maybe let me add one more person, maybe Juliet. Okay, so we'll have 5 people there. Let me go ahead and run this SQL. So if you can come and see, we're having 5 people in our database here, these ones. Okay, so now we're going to see how we can create the login logic and see how we can successfully log in them or login them out. So that's it. Okay, so with that said, let us now go to our page and then try to log in. Okay, to log in. So to log in here, I'm going to provide the username and what? The username and password. So here I'm going to change here the method of the form to be post. So I'll come and put here a method. Method post. Okay. So now let us go ahead and log in. So I'll refresh here. I'll come and put my username, maybe Joan, and Jane, and password 4321. So I can submit, but I can see nothing has happened. Why? Because we have not written the logic of catching those username and password. Okay, so let's go ahead and write that logic here. So I'll come here at the top of my of my project and open the PHP tag, PHP. And I check if there is an instance of someone submitting. So how will I do that? I'll just simply put if is set, okay, post, and then I'm going to check the post of username. So this one will be executed only when someone has submitted what? The username through the post. Otherwise, it will be skipped. Okay, so I can die here and say maybe logging in. So I save there. Now let me come and refresh here. You see, logging in. So if I come for the first time, you see, I'm coming for the very first time. I've just clicked on the link. Nothing has happened even though I refresh, right? But if I come here and provide maybe Joan and then password 4321 and I submit, you can see when I submit there is logging in. So it means that we are now here, we're executing this one only when someone sends a post. So let us go ahead and collect the username and password. I can say maybe username equals I can come and put here maybe trim. I clean, I remove the unnecessary, and then I get the username, and then the password of course is equals to password. Let us make sure that these things are okay. We have collected them properly. So I can just simply say echo username, and I put here password. Okay, so you should be able to see that. Refresh, you see username is here and password is here. So we're able to collect the username and password from the what? From the database. I mean from the form. Okay, so what are you trying to prove? We are trying to prove that this one, someone can hack us using this. So since we have our username here, you see, I want to see if someone has submitted correct username and password. So if someone submits correct username and password, it means that that person has submitted the correct information and we're going to log them in. If they submit wrong username and password, we'll say wrong username or wrong password. Then we will not log them in. Okay. So let us go ahead and do that. Let me put here, maybe here. Done. Okay, so now let us go ahead and write the SQL that is going to collect the information from the database. So I just simply say SQL is equals to select all from what? From users. From users where username equals the username that they have just submitted. Okay, so I can just simply break this one from here, but the SQL will remain the same. Select all from here where username equals to the username that you have submitted, and I have to surround it with what? With quotes like this. Can just simply do like this. Where username is that. Okay, and maybe password. Okay, and I can put and password equals to that. So those who don't program, I'm not too fast. I hope you can get things. So let me first dive and see what we have in the SQL. So I can just put die and then see. So if I come here and refresh, you see what we've come up with. You see. So let me come a little bit slow. So here I just collect the username from the post, right? I collect the password from the post. Then I design the SQL by saying SQL equals to select all from users where username, and then I submit this one with this username value, and password, I submit this password with the password value, and then here I just display it. I display it here. Okay, so by doing like that, we're able to come up with this beautiful line. Can you see this beautiful line? If you want to see if this line is okay, you can as well copy it and run it directly to your database and see if it will bring something. Okay, so I'll copy it and then come and paste here. Okay, I'll come and paste it here. See if I come here to SQL. Okay, come and paste here. Come and say SQL here. This is my database. I paste there. See, then run it. Click go. So you see, at least it can run successfully. Okay, but it's not displaying anything because the condition is wrong. 1, 2, 3, 4. If we put a correct password, you see, it is bringing for us one result. Beautiful. Now it means that now we can write the correct SQL. Now the remaining thing is for us to run it. Okay, I mean to execute it. So to execute it, it means first of all you need the database connection. So I just simply say connection. Guys, you just hold it. You be around. We're going to have a short break. Me, I always give breaks. So when we finish these examples, we'll have a break of like 5 minutes and then we resume. So be strong. Okay, be strong. Let me see how many are still around. You know, these things can be boring. Be strong. We're going to have a break. 47. Okay. Be strong. We're going to have a short break and we breathe for a minute and then we resume. So just be attentive and strong. We're going to have a break. A short break. Okay. Don't go. So this is a connection. this is our connection, equals to, so I'm going to say my SQLI, and then I'll pass here the database. You begin with a host, with a server, which is local host. I hope that's correct. And then followed by the user, by the database. I don't know. Let me see. I don't even have a hint. My SQLI, okay, equals to new my SQLI. Okay, so we pass the host, the username, and then the password, then the database. So the username is root for my, and then the password is root. Okay, and then the database is called, database is what? The database is bank. Very good, thank you. The database is bank. So after doing that, let us go ahead and run the SQL. So to run the SQL, I'll just simply say what we call the resource, or resource equals to connection, and then say pass query, and then we pass the SQL, the query that we created here. Okay, yeah. So after doing that, we can now get the user by fetching us, okay, associative array. So you can just simply say user, I don't know whether I still how I remember even these things, equals to the resource, and then say fetch associative array. Okay, like this. So this one will get us the first what? The first user. Okay, so after doing that, let us see if this user is okay or not okay. I'll just simply put here echo pre-tag, and then say print underscore r, and then I pass that user, and maybe I die here. Okay, so let's go ahead and refresh. Nothing has returned. Let us see. Let me zoom out and see. Nothing came back. Yeah, because provided wrong password. Let me provide correct password, and you see 1 2 3 4. Submit. Beautiful. You see, we're able to get that. Okay, so how can I check if this user was really come or not? So I can just say if equal to null, if this user equals to null. Okay, I can simply should I die? No. Okay, let me just display here echo you entered wrong username or password. Okay, so that's when you enter wrong username password. Else, and then else I'll just simply put here, sorry, this is not supposed to be like this, just not like this. Okay, so else I'll just simply say maybe I can get here, I can say echo hello, and then I pass someone's name here. You can maybe pass someone's name here, hello, someone's name, to show that we know those people who are logged in, right? Hello, someone's name. For example, the name is here. Okay, hello, someone's name. You are successfully logged in. Successfully logged in. Okay, I don't know if that's correct English, but I don't mind. Okay, maybe I can surround this one with a kind of B tag to make it kind of bolded. Okay, so that's it. B tag there. Okay, yeah, so that's beautiful. Okay, so let us go ahead and maybe here die. Okay, so let us go ahead and see what we've come up with. Refresh here. So hello Joan, you're successfully logged in. Okay, you're successfully logged in. So let's break it down again. Let us come and break it down again. I know it's too much, so I'll come and explain it again here. So what have we done? We collect the username here and the password here, and then we wrote our SQL by substituting the username and password, and then we created our connection here, and then after creating connection, we ran the SQL. Okay, then we check if this SQL brought back something. If it did not bring back something, we say here you failed. In fact, let's put failed. Okay, you entered wrong username and password. In case this person enters either wrong username and password, but if this person enters correct things, we'll say you are successfully logged in. So it means that this is the point where we go ahead and log in someone. I hope you understand that. Okay, so these brackets are very, very important. Otherwise, if you execute a wrong mistake here or a wrong thing, it means someone will disguise and then log in as a lecturer and start giving people wrong marks. Okay, so this is very, 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 very critical. Now we're going to go through SQL and see how we can beat this logic. So it means that if you can beat this logic, tomorrow you can even be able to log in into your system as a lecturer and start giving people marks. So you can imagine how rich you can become if you're able to log in as a vice chancellor into the system of the university. Can really be rich. Okay, so here we will tell if this person entered the wrong username or password or otherwise. So let's go ahead and go for, like we're going for the first time. This is the thing. So I'll enter wrong information. You see, so when I submit, failed. He entered wrong username and password. So it's working, right? So if I again come and enter maybe John, and I enter wrong password, I submit, failed. You entered the wrong username and password. Okay, so it is okay. Now let me enter correct thing. John and password 1234. I submit. You see, hello John, you have successfully logged in. So basically that's how we always do that logic. Okay, so our application is working. So here it is when you can start now doing the business of logging someone in, creating session, cookies and the rest. So it means that at this point we'll assume that our application is working, but I've not tested it, the vulnerability of SQL injection. So after being able to do this, now we're going to test its SQL injection. Can it really pass the test of SQL injection? So the first test is just a simple test. If I enter wrong username, or if I enter correct username and then I enter wrong password, of course our system is okay, it will not allow us to proceed. If I enter correct password 1234, the system will work. It allows us to proceed. Let us see how we can beat it. Okay, so we can beat it basing on this fact that if we say 1 is equal to 1, of course, if you know this joining of information, like when you put O and once O is true, it means that the information once O is true, it means that that information will be what? Will be correct. So we're going to hack our system using this fact or this hypothesis. Okay, so I come and refresh. Of course, beautiful. Hello, Jen, you're successful. If I enter wrong username, you see, I enter wrong password. Can you see? You enter wrong username or password. So it is working. Now, what if I don't know password? Okay, so if I don't know password, I can learn that maybe your SQL is like this. Okay, maybe your SQL is like this. So how can I beat it? So in my mind, I can know that if you're collecting the password here, don't I have anywhere how I can say that this password stops here and then it resumes and then I put my other condition? I can do that by just simply coming put here like this. Okay, So this is the username. I mean, this is the password. So our application is literally working correctly. To people who don't know computer programming, it's okay. Of course, it is working perfectly. But if you do such application in real world, if you make such a application in real world, and then you do things in a lazy way like that, so someone will come, I enter wrong password, okay, but I know your SQL, you stop it with a what, with the exclamation mark, like, I mean, how do you call it, with an apostrophe? Is it apostrophe? I don't know, that thing, I know your SQL will stop with this high, how do you call this thing, apostrophe, right? Quotation, single quotation. Yes, single quotation. I know that your SQL will stop with the single quotation, and then I just, you see, this is wrong password, and then I just come and add 1 equals to 1. Okay, I know 1 is always equal to 1, and I do like this. Can you see, is that password correct? No. And this is not my application. I assume it's not my application, and then I submit. So uncode call member function. Okay, let's see how we can redesign it, because let me first die here with the SQL and say I can reframe it. I've written it badly. Refresh here. So select all from user, where password equals this, password equals to that, and password equals this, and so I can frame it. See, that is okay. 1 equals to 1. So I have to put maybe a hyphen somewhere here. Maybe I can say so you see, I will just want to hack it, so it means that this end, you see this semicolon, I mean this a quotation, single quotation, the one messing up. So I can learn, and I know, okay, so what I should do, should put here my quotation, and put here my quotation, and put here a quotation. So I know the last one you will close it by yourself, so I'll not put it there. So if I do like this, I think this is a correct SQL. You see, 1 equals to 1. Let us go ahead and try and see if that will work. Refresh. Can you see? Let me repeat. Let me repeat, guys. I'm saying I'm going to enter wrong password. Okay. So assume that I've just landed in your application and I don't have any idea that I don't have any password for your application. I don't even know any username, but I know how programmers do write their codes. So what I do, I'll enter even a wrong name. Can you see? This is the login page. I'm entering wrong information, wrong username. I even don't know the password. I just enter anything, but I know the syntax that you use to write the SQL because I'm a programmer like you. Or I may even not be knowing. You ask me to enter a password. Accidentally, I enter something like this. So I know this one will close a fast password. I mean the first condition. Okay? And then I come and enter O. So I know if I put O, if one of the things is correct, it will always be what? Correct. O, and then I open one condition. I can put here anything, 2 or 3. I say O1, and I close it, equals to 1. I know the last quotation, you'll put it there for me, so I don't need to put it there. So can you see? Wrong username, wrong password. I go ahead and what? And submit. Can you see? Hello, John. You're successfully logged in. Can you see that weakness, guys? I don't know whether you're really following, but anyone, can you open your microphone and say this? I've seen the weakness, or if you can comment, anyone. You have seen, eh?
You have seen.
At least like four people.
Yeah, I've seen.
Yes, we've seen.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, doctor, please come in.
Excuse me. Mr. Mhindo.
Yes, if let doctor first give his input, then he'll come in. Yes, doctor.
Yes, can you ask
Doctor, doctor, come in and then she'll ask.
No, it's okay. I was asking I wanted to know whether the students are following, because I'm following.
Okay.
I wanted 4 of them, 2 girls, 2 boys, to say yes, we are following.
Thank you, sir.
So that we have an idea that we have a class.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, so you can continue.
Okay.
So there's someone.
Okay, sir. Okay. Thank you, doctor. Okay, now there was a lady was bringing something forward.
I just wanted to ask why it is calling you John when you didn't provide John.
Thank you. So you see, that is the weakness now. That is the weakness. So I've successfully hacked the system. So why is it providing John? It just got the first user in in our table. So if you come to our table, you see, if you come to our table, the first user in our table, if you come here to the table of users, where is it? This one, eh? Can you see? The first user in our table is John. Okay? So we just collected the first user in our table, who is John. So it means that the person who hacked our system, he successfully got the first user into. So I don't know whether we're getting the point. We got just the first user because this person hacked the system. So we just got for him a first user, and then we assume that it's John, yet he's not really John. So let us conclude how this happened. So you see, we entered wrong username, and then wrong password, and then we just tricked, just like they always said, it is a trick of how can read database, and then we submitted. So you can see we have come up with this first user. So it is successfully logged in. Yes, yet it is not. So that is the mistake that you can do. Maybe I assume that you're making a bank application and then you do that lazy coding. Then it means that someone will have injected SQL in your project in that way. So let us see how our SQL looks like at this moment. So I'll just simply come and die here with the SQL and see how it looks like. So can you see? Select all from users where username is equal to wrong username, password is equal to wrong password, and then this is the thing that a person was able to do to trick our system. He just added O, and then he tricked it like this. So that is a loophole. If you program things in a lazy way, you'll end up creating loopholes like those ones. So we have solutions that we're going to look at and how we can get rid of this one. So I hope everyone has understood. You might have not understand the code. I'll share the source code, by the way. You might have not understand the code as how it is, but the main point is to understand the concept. So we can proceed.
Hello.
So yes.
Could you please print the U? Maybe it could make more sense as exactly one.
The what?
The U, the variable.
Oh, the variable. Yeah. The variable. Yeah, it makes. You see, this I displayed here the SQL first, but you see here the variable is an array, so there are so many things. So I just picked only the name, but we can as well do that by just simply putting something like print _r. So you can see that we're able to collect the whole information about a user. So can you see? Refresh here, you see? So it was an array, so that's why I don't want to display everything. So, but here they can get the point. We are able to get the information even though you provide wrong information. I will share this source code. You'll go through it at your own time. So let us proceed. I hope you guys have got the concept. You are out of time. We're going to have a short break, so let us proceed before we have a break. Let us finish this slide, okay? So SQL injection based on 1 = 1 is always true. So I've looked at that. So we have another one is called based on empty string is always equal to empty string. And this is an example of how you can write that one. So I will not practically practice this, since I've just done the main one, and we've gone through a lot step by step to come up to this point. So we are going just to explain these pieces of code. So I'll share with you this code so that you can have somewhere to start from. So SQL, so here let us assume that you're collecting the user from the post or get. Username equals to that, and then password equals to that. And then here we say select where username equals to the username, and then the password equal to that. And then this person tricks, you see, he's tricking, and say empty is always equal to empty. So by doing like that, we'll also be able to get him a user. So that can also be a loophole, or another example of SQL injection. So we have another SQL injection called based on a batched statement, and that will be your task, to try. Okay, there is a way still how we can execute an SQL basing on on batch statement. Okay, so you see, we're going to look at it. Okay, look at this one. Select all from users. So this person will close. Can you see? This person closes our SQL and then say drop a certain table. This is very dangerous SQL, whereby someone can even delete the whole database. Imagine you have created an application like maybe SafeBorder or Jumia, but you are not aware of SQL injections. So someone will come and help you to test, and then he just stops your SQL and then say drop the table of products, and then all products are gone. You can imagine how really risky it can be. So that's another problem, and you're going to elaborate this one. It's called based on batch batch statements. So batch statement means that running more than one statement in the same time. And here the trick is you stop the programmer's SQL and then you write your own SQL. And this SQL can be a deletion SQL, it can be anything. Okay, so let us see how we can do that. I will comment this one. So you see, I come here for the very first time. So the first thing, you have to read the user's mind, the programmer's mind. The program maybe wrote something like this, and then also maybe he will ask for password, and then you stop his password, and then you stop his statement. Can you see? This semicolon will stop the statement, right? So you stop the programmer's statement, and then you write your own statement. Delete from users. I'll not run this because we'll delete everything from our users. Let me say where ID equals to 1. Okay, maybe I can maybe open here because I know it's going to. So can you see? So before we run this SQL, let us first display it how it looks like. So I'm going just to die here with the SQL, and we see how really malicious this can be. Let us submit. Can you see? Delete from users where this is our SQL, the normal SQL. Select from users where username is equal to that and password is equal to this. So when he puts a semicolon, or when we put a semicolon, it means that our first SQL has ended. So this programmer or this person who is trying to hack our system, he can end our first SQL, and he's basing that on a fact that SQL can run multiple statements. So he's ending our SQL. Then he starts writing his own SQL. Delete from users where he may not even put where. He can stop from there, and then you'll see what will happen. He'll be able to delete everything. I don't know whether you're getting the point, but okay, let me show you. Let me first, I don't want to delete all my users. So let me first export them, and then we're going to run this SQL and to see how someone can hack us, and how it can really be so dangerous. So, in our table of users, we are having how many? We're having 5 users. Okay, 5 users. So let us go as programmers and see how we can delete everything by hacking through SQL injection. So I will come here, remove this. So I'll come here and refresh. So let us do it together. So you put here the first username, put the password, put the semicolon that will stop the quote, that the single quote that will stop the the password, and put the semicolon that is going to stop the programmer's intended SQL, the semicolon. Then we write our own SQL. Drop table. Let us drop it. Drop table. Let us delete, not drop. Delete from users. Okay, delete from users. I don't even put a condition. I can maybe, since I know at the end of this semicolon, at the end of this SQL, there is also another quote. So I don't want this line to crash. So I can say select from users, because if I don't write the correct syntax, the SQL will not be executed. Select from users where, okay, and then say maybe 1 equals to 1. So why do I write this select? Because I want this last quote to be valid also, because I know the programmer must have put this at the end, so I want him to do it that for me. So that's why I write this y equal to 1. So let's look at this. So this malicious attacker, he stops our SQL from here. He then writes his SQL. Can you see? Delete from users. This is going to delete everything in our users table. And then after, he write maybe another SQL just to make his query valid. So let us go ahead and run. So uncaught member function, but so let us come and check users. Did it write correct SQL? Select where it's got that. Let us first check the SQL, how it is, if it is okay. And see. So this is how SQL is. Select all from users where, and so he stops the SQL from there, and then say delete from users, and then say select from users where 1 equal to 1. So by doing like that, supposed to delete everything from what? From our table. I don't know why it did not work, but that's how it's supposed to be. So by the end of the day, you'll be able to delete everything from what? From the table. So which is really dangerous. The user can, the attacker can even decide to do what? To drop the whole table, or even to drop the whole database. So it is really dangerous. So to save time, let us proceed. So SQL based on batch comment. So the user can decide to comment your query. Can you see? This person is stopping our SQL, and then he comments our SQL. He comments the remaining part of the SQL. Or in fact, here we're supposed to comment the remaining part if he didn't want to do that. So you can see I stop his SQL and then I comment here by doing like this. So these two lines, it means that they mean commenting in what? In our SQL. In database. So by doing like that, it means that the remaining part that are inside the SQL, they don't make sense, and then it means that this user can be able to do what? That attacker can be able to do anything because he has commented everything that was remaining in our SQL by just simply adding these two dashes. Okay. So the user can also decide to do this in this way. We can also be able to comment a what? An attacker, not the user. A user can do it accidentally, but an attacker can decide to also do it in that way. And then it means that he will have commented the remaining sections of what? Of our SQL. This is also another way how we comment in SQL by writing / and a star. And then that one will also be, it means that you'll have commented the remaining part of the what? Of the SQL. So how can we get rid of this? We're going to do that in 10 minutes, then we'll have a break, maybe. So how can we mitigate this SQL injection? So the first one is the use of parameters. So we have what we call parameters. I will not be able to demonstrate that, but I'll show you how you can get those parameters. Okay, use of SQL parameters, detention of malicious characters. So as we saw here, most of the problem that we had here is that we do not even care to check if this person has submitted the correct characters that we were supporting, or that they're not going to mess up with our SQL. So what we were supposed to do here, before you even execute the SQL, we were supposed to clean the data that was coming from what? from the user. So what we should do, we could first check if this username does not have things like apostrophe and comma and the quotation mark. Then after checking, then we'll be able to do what? To proceed. But we did not do all that. So we were supposed to do it from this point. So if this person maybe we find is having maybe a comment line in our SQL, we couldn't allow them to do what? To proceed with their we couldn't allow them to proceed with what? With a system, with execution of a what? Of a file. So you do that before you do what? You proceed with before you even run the what? Before you even run the SQL. So we have how we can get rid of this. We use of SQL parameters. Let me see if I wrote it in the next slide. Yeah, we're going to look at that. We use what we call SQL parameters. Okay, we'll look at it. We use what we call detection of malicious characters. So we first detect if the input that the user has submitted is really clean, it does not have malicious pieces of characters that are going to mess with our what? With our SQL. We do what we call escaping. We'll also look at what is meant by escaping. So characters that may mess up with our SQL, such as single quote, we can do what? We can escape them. And then we also do the pattern check. For example, if you're expecting a phone number, let it be numbers. If you're expecting maybe a name, don't even expect numbers. So we have to check the pattern of the inputs. So database permission limits, we can limit, for example, a user who is going to select not to delete. So if you limit the user access levels, for example, you can say all the users who are going to be running this query, their task will be to select. So you limit the user to select, not to delete or to drop. So it means that there you will also be free from what? From having malicious. You will have limited the what? The SQL injection. So what we call SQL parameters in PHP or even some other programming language, object-oriented programming language, we call them prepared statements. So prepared statement is a feature used to execute a similar SQL statement that is repeatedly with high efficiency. So this is how we write an SQL, a prepared statement. So what we do, we say we first design the template of of the SQL. So for example here, we're expecting only two inputs, the username and the password. So what we were supposed to do, we were supposed to design a template that will only allow the username and password. So even if this person enters multiple things and solve the SQL, whatever he enters, or the extra thing that he enters, will not consider it as as part of the SQL. And that's what we call prepared statement. You can come and search about prepared statement here. Let me PHP prepared statement. Even in other programming language, Java, they already there prepared statement. Okay, so you can come here to Laboratory Schools. You can really find good articles that are teaching about prepared statement. Okay, so that prepared statement is one of the best way you can get rid of of SQL injection. We are just learning how SQL injection is really dangerous to our systems. I hope you've seen it, though you might have not sit down and think how it can really affect. But when you sit down and you think, you'll see that SQL injection is a bad thing. So getting rid of it, you have to give it all what it takes. So one of the best way is what you call prepared statements. Prepared statements, they are available in almost all programming language, even Python, they are there. So in PHP, they are there. And this is what is a prepared prepared statement is. So apart from slide, you can go ahead and search these things in on internet. For example, in W3 Schools, there's a very good article about prepared statements. Okay, so you see how a prepared statement is. For example, if we are selecting, we could just say, we are insert into a certain table, and then we specify the fields 1, 2, 3, which is the first name, last name, and email. And then you put the values, put question mark, question mark, question mark. So these are 3 fields. And then here, when you pass the fields. You see, you just first create the statement, and then when you execute it, you pass the parameters. So for example, you can see you're passing the first name, the last name, and the email. So whatever thing that a malicious attacker may want to add in our SQL, it will not be considered. assume that this person wanted to trick like we've been tricking. This will only execute what you predefined. Okay, so you first predefine, or you first write a template like this one. It can also be a select template. It can as well be a select. You can, instead of saying inserting, you can say select, and then you specify only fields. So here, if we expected 3 fields, 2 fields, username and password, so even if the other person adds other 20 or other thing, they will be ignored and they'll only execute those 2 fields. So that is one of the way we can get rid of the SQL injection, by use of prepared statements. In your free time, search about prepared statements. You'll find very good articles about them on internet. So we proceed. So you can read this. Okay, we proceed to another one. Is called, so this we were trying to show you how you can write the prepared statement, but I've already explained, so you may not need. Okay, so here what you do, you define it. After defining it, you feed there the data from the user. So even if this user try to go around, it will not break anything, and then you execute. So detection of malicious characters, I've already said that. You may first check before you run this SQL here, before you execute it. First check, did this password add words that can mess up with my SQL? And we've seen those words that can mess up with the SQL. For example, the quotes, the single quote. We have seen the and, the or, the comments, the open curly bracket. Those one can mess up with the what? With the SQL. So what do? You first check here before you run the SQL. First check, is this string having them? Is this SQL having them? If it has them, you first get rid of them. You escape them. We're going to look at how you can escape. You escape them. After escaping, then you go ahead and execute while you know the code is what? Is clean, or the input is clean. So that is another way how we can get rid. So before you run an SQL, first get rid of what? Of malicious characters. So another way is through escape. So there is a way how databases can help us, or programming languages can help us to prune or to cut off characters that can change the meaning of our what? Of our SQL. And that's what we call SQL escape. In PHP, we have what we call real string escape. Likewise to other programming languages, they have. So if you implement all these solutions, you may not be like 100% done with SQL injection, but you'll be with 99% sure that at least you're done with SQL injections. You're rid of SQL injection. So for example, this my SQL real escape. It's an inbuilt PHP function that will help you to get rid of all characters that can change the meaning of your what? Of your SQL. For example, if a person puts this single quote in his input and you first pass the information through this my SQL real escape string, it will remove that, it will escape that what? That string. So it means that in case someone enters anything that can mess up with our database, this string escape can help us to get rid of it. So if you implement all these features, it means that you will be rid of what? Of SQL injection. So you come and search here, PHP my SQL real escape string. Come and search about it. In your free time, you see example of codes, then come and read these articles about it. W3 School is a good source where you can read. Can you see? So these guys, they'll tell you the good story of why you need it and how you need it and how you can use it. Can you see? So it means that here before you, for example, the other, we were getting the username and password. So here what they did, you do what? You pass it through this my SQL real string escape, okay? And then in case that username and password has something like an apostrophe, a quotation mark, it means that it will be what? It will be escaped. A single quotation mark, it will be what? It will be escaped. If it is having anything like a comment, So this will clean. It's inbuilt PHP function. It will help us to clean the code. I mean those inputs. Even other programming language, they have them. So in your free time, please come and search about this one. I hope you guys are noting down. Are you? Okay, so can proceed. And then you can also do the pattern check. You have to check the pattern if the pattern is okay. For example, if you expected a phone number, then always limit your users to enter the phone number before you run the SQL database. You can also limit the users' roles. So for example, you know what, different users, for example, you see here, we're able to provide the user when you're creating this connection, this root user. So what you do, you may create the user for the users for selecting. So if this task, the task of this user is to select, then this user, you limit the roles of that user on the database, not to do functions like updating and deleting. So by doing like that, you'll also be able to reduce the chances of SQL injection. So database permissions, you can deny the users from doing that. So let us summarize our first part of our today's lecture. So here is the summary. You have to understand the database that you use. So if you really sit down and think how this SQL injection can be dangerous to you, okay? If you really sit down and think, if you inspire to become a programmer or developer in future, or someone who's going to deal with softwares, sit down and think how this SQL injection can be dangerous, okay? So, and how can you get rid of it? So let us look at these summaries. You have to understand the database that you're using. Does it support stored procedures? What is the comment operator of that database? For example, how do you comment information in that database? Does it allow the attacker to call the extended functionality? You have to understand the common SQL injections that are against that database. So every day, hackers or programmers come up with different ways of how they can hack the databases. So you have to be updated. Always search. If you're making a maybe bank application or a popular application that is having sophisticated information like university marks and the rest, bank information and the rest, okay, which is really sophisticated. Every day you have to search and find out which new ways hackers have found to do SQL injection. So, and find the way possible how you can get rid of them. So because the ones that you've provided, yes, they are really powerful, but we don't guarantee that you're 100% free from from the injection. So injection is just kind of creativity. If someone can really become so much creative, he can still hack you through through SQL injection. So do check so you have to be updated. Do check the input for validity. So before you just execute anything like the way we did here, first validate if things are really okay before you execute. Then do check the validity of the server. Is the server having the latest programming language installed? If it's PHP, is it the latest PHP installed? If it's Python, is it? If it is not, for example, PHP 7.2, it was having a problem with with the cross-section attacks. So do use parameterized queries. Like they always said, you have to use parameterized query instead of running the plain SQLs. And then you have to store the connection information outside the application, such as approximately protected configuration file. Okay. So you have to encrypt sensitive data like passwords. For example, the way I did here, this was a bad practice. You see, I stored the password directly as it was, but passwords are supposed to be encrypted first, which is not today's topic, but that's just another day's topic. So you have to encrypt the password or other information that is really important, other than just keeping it straight to the database. Do not trust input used by built-in. Do not trust input used to build SQL input. So you can say that this application is being used by maybe the people within our company, so they may not have malicious intentions. So you trust them and then you handle things lightly, but don't do that. Everything will always have to make sure that it is having that protection. Don't trust anything that is coming from what? From the user. Even though you're working in the same company, even though it's you yourself only, you're going to use this. But if it's you yourself, you can face the consequences. But as long as you're more than one people are going to use application, always don't trust. Okay, do not use string connection to build SQL statements like the way we did. Do not execute untrusted parameters within the stored procedures. Do not check the input validity only on the client. Sometimes we always, for example, you see the way I did here. You see, sometimes you see when I try to submit here, this field is required. What does it mean? I checked from the client that this user must provide the username, but don't do that. Like, okay, it is good, check from here, but also don't check only and stop from here, because I can trick. For example, I can come here to inspect, and then I come here to require. You see, it's required here, and I delete it. Okay, so can you see? It was complaining, but right now it's no longer complaining. So you cannot trust the client or the browser that the validation came from the browser and things were okay. No, you have to validate from the browser. At the same time, you have to validate from the server. Otherwise, if you validate from the browser only, maybe you'll be joking, because the browser, it gives us ability to manipulate it. So validate from both the browser and the what? And the server, or what you call the client. So thank you. That's it, unless we have question. If you don't have question, we'll go for a break for 5 minutes. So at exactly 8:10 we'll resume and end the class with maybe like 50 minutes. Unless you have a question, guys. Do you have any question? Any comment? Any question in 1 minute from anyone? I hope no. Okay, let us have a break. We go and drink water for 5 minutes. So at exactly 8:10 or 10 past 8, we'll resume the business. We can go and drink some water, Okay, thanks. After at 10 past 8, we'll resume. And that's when we'll
trying out something. But if, because I'm assuming it's bringing it in ascending order, if you maybe make it to bring it in descending order, the first.
You're talking to me?
Hello.
Yes, you're talking to me?
We are in a break.
Yeah, we're in a break. Let's go and chill, man. Chill, eh? Yeah. After break, we'll resume. Give us the ID numbers, identification numbers. Okay. You don't take attendance. Yeah, rig numbers. Welcome back from the short break. Coming for the last minutes of the last presentation of XSS attack. XSS attack. I hope we are back. We are all back, and I hope you are attentive for the remaining minutes that you're going to cover. So I welcome you back to our second and but last presentation of our lecture, which is the XSS attack. So in the previous section, in the previous part, we looked at the SQL injection attack. So here we're going to look at XSS attack. So I request all of us to be attentive in these remaining minutes. You know we are kind of tired, but we're going to finish. Just be strong for like remaining 30 minutes, and then we complete this part. And they will be important, of course. They are going to be important in both your performance as well as real world. So I call upon your attention. So what you're going to cover today, this topic, we are going to look at what is meant by XSS, what is XSS attack. We'll also look at the types of cross XSS attack, the causes of cross XSS attack, the affected languages that are affected by XSS attack. We'll look at non-persistent XSS attack, or what we call the reflected XSS attack, and then we have the persistent XSS attack. We'll also look at the testing of XSS attack issues and ways how we can prevent them. So what we covered previously in the previous lecture, we'll look at the SQL injection attacks. So right now you should be having at least a picture of what is meant by SQL injection. You should have a picture of SQL injection examples, SQL injection mitigation, how we can get rid of them. And let's get started now with what? With XSS attack. So it stands for cross-site scripting, okay? So cross-site scripting is a type of security vulnerability that can be found in some web application. So this XSS attack is a problem basically or mainly on what? On web. Okay. So it allows, attackers access attack enables, or it allows attackers to inject client scripts into the web pages viewed by the users. So I want us to understand what is meant here. The other one was affecting the SQL, but what is really affecting what is the XSS attack affecting here? This one, it does not affect the SQL, but it affects what the user is seeing. So for you may design your website to display maybe other things, but when the user when users access it, they are seeing other things. So that is what is meant by what? By cross-access cross-access attack. It's just like assume that you're designing a school website, and when users open it, they see nudes. So that is possible through what? Through XSS attack. It's also a dangerous attack. So you should be able to differentiate the two. I'm kind of going slow because I want us to understand. We may not give these exact definitions in exams, but when you give a definition, an exam that shows you understand something, you'll earn your mark, you'll earn some mark. So that's why I'm kind of slow. So my internet. Can you get me? Tell them that I'm off just for a minute.